Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs in the world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, Phil Better, the podcast mogul, and I can't wait to talk to my current guest today, the COO of Written Word Media, Ferol Vernon. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Ferol, I already have this beautiful intro for you, and I'm going to do it before the episode, but why don't you introduce yourself to my audience and we can start talking about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Ferol. I am the COO of Written Word Media. Written Word Media is a platform to help authors, writers, the creatives of the world market and promote their books. We do that through a variety of different ways, but primarily we have a marketing product that goes out to about 1 million readers through a variety of media properties that we have and that we run. And that's how authors sell more books. We've been doing this about 8 years, and it's been a ton of fun. I'm excited to talk more about it today.
Oh, I love that. I love that you're helping the authors, because I was talking with a member of a mastermind, and it was like most authors only sell like 300 books.
Yes. Yeah. So that's part of the reason our product works, is because a lot of authors have that experience. They call it publish and pray, right? Where you publish your book and you hope. And, you know, the secret is that doesn't work. You have to market it. And so oftentimes that's how authors discover us. They'll publish a book that they've spent, sometimes a long time. Writing books very hard. And they publish it, nothing happens. They find us, they use our product, which definitely works. They start to see sometimes their first sales. Experienced authors, they're just seeing more sales. But those are fun stories for us and our team to hear when it's an author who's just discovered us and they write in and they say, oh my gosh, I sold 20 copies and I have never sold more than 1 copy in a week. And I sold 20 in a day. And so those are fun stories, and it's a fun community to serve.
Yeah, no, that is like, though I love it when I hear from my clients or the people who use some of my methods to grow their podcast, like, oh, I got more downloads this week, thank you, or my email doubled, or I got this, that, the comments, and it's like, those are great. Those are just like small wins, and you remember it for yourself. If you're an author, you remember those wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And we even have like an internal Slack channel just for celebrations at our team, and every time we get one of those, it's like a celebratory moment with the company. It's like, the emojis are flying wild, because that's like all the hard work that you do as a team to build the platform, to serve the customers. When they write in and tell you like, hey, it worked, it's a pretty special day.
Yeah, it's like, it gets that like, yes, okay, we're doing the right thing. We're helping the little person win. I want to go back to the beginning, all the way to the beginning. What made you want to start? Like, what was your why to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about family, right? So I grew up in a family. My dad was an entrepreneur in the hotel space. My mom was an artist. And so where I've ended up in my career, sort of the intersection between business and creativity is no accident, right? I'm absolutely a result of my family, heavily influenced by everybody there. And so, my journey, I always kind of had that in my head, like growing up with that. My dad was running a business. So I just kind of thought, you're young and naive. Like, I just thought that's what you did, right? Like, that's what people did. And my dad's business was very traditional, right? It was a hotel. So we could go see it, right? And we would meet the people that worked there, and they would call the house. And this was before cell phones. So I'd say, Dad, like, this person's on the phone, and you get to know the staff. So it was really part of my childhood. And then as I kind of got older and got interested in really technology and sort of the digital revolution, I was always interested in computers and graphics and everything. That became very clear early on that, like, hey, I want to start my own business. This thing is happening. I was in college in the early 2000s, and I'm like, I want in somehow. And it took me a while to get there and find my footing, but it was always a kind of like, well, when am I going to be ready to start my own business? That was always kind of in my plan, even if I didn't really know what form that would take. And when I look back on it, what I'm doing now, I'm like, oh, that fits perfectly with where I've been. But I think it happens to everybody, right? It's a little bit of, you make up a story to fit where you are. But like the intersection of creativity and business, serving the independent creatives. I did it for 6 years in music. I've done it for the last 8 years with authors. And it's an amazing place to be. I'm very grateful for what we've been able to accomplish.
I love it. I love it. So when it came to the author and building this platform to market to authors, what was it like? Were you just, because you said you were helping musicians prior to that?
Yeah.
Was it just an author came over and said, "Hey, help me out," and you did it for free, or how did that work?
Yeah. So for me, it all comes back to family, right? So I was working in a music startup. I loved my job, loved the people I worked with. My wife was doing online marketing consulting and at the time. So we were both kind of in the digital space, but we were working on separate things. And my mother-in-law wrote a book and, was like, how do I sell it? And we're like, oh, cool. We're digital natives, right? We know how to do this. So like, let's figure out how to sell your book. And we got it up on Amazon and like, couldn't sell it. Nothing happened, right? And so my wife had this idea. She's like, well, let's throw up a website that gives away free books and we'll give away my mom's book as like a way to promote it. Couldn't give it away for free. And so, but we built this website and I, wanted to experiment with some technology. So like nights and weekends, we built this website and finally figure out how to like give away the thing by running some ads on Facebook. And so, and then like, from my perspective, I put it down. I was working at this job I loved. My wife was consulting. We're kind of on my health insurance on my job, but her business started to grow. Her consulting business and Facebook advertising was just coming of age. And so she was experimenting with it for her clients. And she was using this little website that we built that gave away free books with FreeBooksy, which is still a written word media property today. And, one day an author writes into her and says, hey, can I pay you to be on the website? And so, this is like advice for your listeners, Entrepreneurship 101. Like when somebody says, can I pay you? You just say yes, and then figure out how to do it later. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what she did. And that, kept happening over and over again. And it was, interns in Google Docs and trying to figure out how to get stuff in. But the business did start to grow. And when we looked at it together, we're like, hey, this could be a real thing. My experience building scalable technologies, understanding of that market, the actual product that she had that had a little bit of product market fit already. We were like pretty sure it was going to work. And so that was when I made a decision to quit my job. And we'd always wanted to work together and sort of build our life around our family instead of building our family around work. And so this was an opportunity to do that. And, in retrospect, it seems crazy. My daughter was 5 months old and we had 2 small kids at home and I had a great job that I loved and I just quit. But I think that's the thing about this journey, right? And what a lot of people listening are probably going through is when do you take that leap? Right? When do you take the swan dive and actually do it? And I can't give you the answer because for everybody, that's their personal journey. But for me, it was that moment when we said, we're giving up the salary and the health insurance and we're going to make a go at this. And here we are 8 years later. And we've been very fortunate to be successful, but we've had a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work and some mistakes along the way for sure.
I don't doubt it, but those mistakes are that's where you learn. That's
the good stuff.
Yeah, that's where the meat and the potatoes. That's where everything is. The knowledge is in the failures, because you just grow from there. You know not what to do. Success doesn't teach you anything other than wow, I can do it.
Right. It's nice though. I will say.
No, yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Success is amazing. Not putting that down at all.
Yeah.
But the learning is in the failures. I don't know. What is it like working with your family, like working with your wife and building a business? Because that's not everybody can do it. So maybe you can give some tips to some entrepreneurs out there for that.
Yes. So absolutely. And I get asked this question all the time, and it's a conversation best done over dinner with plenty of time and wine, right? But like for your audience, to give you the highlights, I think it is complicated, but it is beautiful in that complexity, right? So it is an amazing thing to get to run this business together. We get to choose our own destiny. We get to, we don't have investors. We don't have a board. We get to choose how we want to treat our employees, what we want to give back to the community. We really get to do it on our terms because it's just us. And I think if you treat it like, hey, we're building a family together, we're also building a business together, there's a lot of things that translate there. And open communication is a huge deal. Swim lanes are a big deal. So that's probably when our business really started to take off, when we stopped doing everything together. And we said, okay, you take this piece and I'll take this piece and, I'll see you in a week. And that really worked. And then I think, recency bias being what it is, during COVID and during any emergency time, we were lucky as startup founders that we lived in the same house, right? We could have a meeting every night in person. We didn't have to do the Zoom thing, right? Like a lot of other co-founders. So there's a lot of benefits of being able to debrief with your co-founder every day, right? Every morning. And you have to sort of respect the boundaries there a little bit, but there's a lot of benefits. And then I think, the final thing I'll say is that doing everything together, it amplifies everything, right? So the highs are way higher because something goes right at work. Like, last week we launched this membership platform for authors that we've been working on for 6 months. It's been a ton of work. And we finally launched it and like everything was great, right? Because we go home, like we both had a great day. Like authors are liking it, authors are buying, like it's just, everything is good. But you also have those down moments, right? And everybody who's on this journey knows it's not all highs, that there are lows too. And so when there are those lows and you come home, like you both had a bad day, right? So it kind of amplifies that. You both know you've had a bad day, right? There's no hiding it and just chit-chatting at the table. So those are some of the things I think, and for anybody listening who's running a family business, I'd love to talk to you. I think that's one of those things that I really enjoy is talking to other people. We have some friends that do this too. But there's a lot of sort of beautiful little complexities that go along with getting it right. And I would say like the punchline is communication. That's an easy one, but there's a million other things that go into it as well.
No, I love that you're punching on the communication, because even in business, if you don't communicate with your employees, to your co-founders on that, it's not going to work. Like it's going to fall apart. And so, yeah, I love how there is that commonality in both. Going through your journey, the 13 years you've been doing entrepreneurship for both musicians and authors, you must have collected a plethora of memories. Is there one that really sticks out that just is like, this is like reinforces the idea of why you became an entrepreneur in the first place?
There's a lot. And, when I was in music, that wasn't my business. I was on the leadership team and that was an amazing experience, but there's a group of really talented, smart people that founded that company. And I wasn't one of them, but, so my journey with authors, I think there's a bunch of moments that stick out, but I think the conferences is one of those moments, because a lot of the early days we were in front of a computer, right? Trying to get stuff to work, answering author emails, trying to figure out how to get this business to run with a limited amount of people and no funding and late nights and all this stuff. But the first time where we're like, okay, it's worth spending some money to go to a conference, which we didn't want to spend in the early days because we wanted to invest that in actually building the business. I showed up, and people who write books, like these people that create the stories that you and I read that are amazing, like they knew who we were. Right. And so they're like, oh, I use FreeBooksy. Like it helped me promote my book. And you're just like, oh, like it was awesome. Right. And we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, because that story's happened a lot over the years. But I think the first time it happened, it happened a bunch of times, right? Because you're at a conference, you're wearing the name tag and you're walking around drinking the crummy coffee and meeting people. And, but I kept running into authors, and, a lot of them hadn't heard of us, but enough of them had that they were just like, it was heartwarming, it was validating, but it was also so cool. That's like, hey, we built something that is helping some people, and it could help a lot more people, and it could be better because, you see the problems with your own business sometimes more than the good parts. But I think that's one of those moments when you meet somebody in person and they're like, oh, what you do is working. Right. And I spend my day personally, in spreadsheets, in code, managing people, like HR stuff, like running a business, right? They spend their days inventing characters, right? Imagining lands that don't exist, love plots that don't exist, inventing all this stuff. And so to meet somebody where that's their life, is this creativity, and they're like, hey, I didn't want to become an online marketer. I wanted to be a writer, and you're helping me sell books. That's awesome. It was just amazing. And so I think that's probably the moment. I knew you were going to ask, and like, I can't remember which conference it was, but I have the moment of the author. I don't even remember her name, but like those first experiences are so transformative. And I think somebody gave me some advice once, and I think it's very true. It's never a bad idea to talk to your customers, right? And whether you get good feedback or bad feedback or whatever, when you talk to a customer, that's when you understand what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And that was one of those times where we were doing it right.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Ferol, we are coming to the end, and I hate that we're going to be ending shortly because I'm enjoying talking to you and learning about your journey. But I do like asking, I guess, and since you're a marketer for authors, this is a perfect question to ask you.
Yeah.
But is there a book that you would suggest to entrepreneurs that they should pick up to start their journey, or maybe help them along in their journey?
This is a tough question. Like, I'm a book person, right? Like, I work in books. I'm a reader. I come from a family of readers. So, my family growing up, we would all read the same book. It was like a mini book club. And I still trade books with my mom, who lives around the corner and stuff. So this is a tough one. I will say there's a few books that have been really transformative for me that I might recommend. So the first one is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And so this is a classic business book, and it might be a little dated right now, but the two things that I love about it, and it's almost kind of meta, right? But I listened to the audiobook, and the enthusiasm that he has for what he does, which is analyze why companies are good and how they can become great, is just like entrancing. So if you like business, and he talks a lot about, the stock market and the value of the company and some of that stuff. It's a little mechanical if you're not used to business books, or if you're just getting started, but don't worry about that. Just glaze over it. Just listen to the stories, right? And the stories about people and how they had a perfectly fine business and how it became great. And it's really cool. And he's got this whole research team, and it's great.
Oh, I like that. I definitely picking up that one.
Yeah. And then the other book that, I didn't love the whole thing, but really changed the way I think about things was The 4-Hour Workweek. And this is by Tim Ferriss, which I bet, a lot of people that are getting started in digital entrepreneurship may have heard of that. And in the book, he talks a lot about extreme outsourcing and only working 4 hours a week, which, isn't really what I want to do. But the thing I think when I read it, which was many years ago, was just, I was thinking about this entrepreneurship journey, but it seems overwhelming. And it's a little bit different today because there's so many great software services out there, but like the concept of how do you run payroll? How do you file taxes? How do you do this? How do you, I know how to do this stuff, but I don't know how to do all this. And it was like, hey, you can hire people to help you with that. And that was there's a lot of things in the book. Some of it's great, some of it's not so great, but that was my takeaway, was you can outsource a lot of these things and build a really great business. And you just have to hire some help. You don't have to go it alone. And I think that for me, I was just like, oh, that's how I might do this, right? And I don't actually want to work 4 hours a week because I don't know what I would do with the rest of my time.
Oh yeah, no. But, I think 4 hours a day is good.
Yeah.
But 4 hours a week, I'd go crazy.
Yeah.
I'd definitely go crazy.
Anyway, I would say those are two books. We could do a whole podcast just on books because I could talk about it all day. But I think those are two good ones. Two good ones I like to talk about.
Awesome. No, I love it. And I am a fan of the 4 hour work week, and do agree cutting your work week to 4 hours, maybe a little crazy right now, but maybe in the future when I want to retire, maybe I'll go to the 4 hour work week.
There you go.
I'm going to jump off the screen, Ferol. I'm going to give you the last little bit. Please tell my audience where they can find you, how they can support you, and how they can, maybe possibly work with you in the future. So the floor is yours, sir.
Yes. So two places. If you're interested in anything books, anything media, if you're a writer of any kind, go to writtenwordmedia.com. You can learn about what we do. The contact form is right there. If you want to reach out to me to ask anything or ask our team anything, there's nothing in the world that we like more than hearing from authors, digital entrepreneurs, everybody who's in the independent creator economy. You're our reason for existing, and we want to hear from you. So that's writtenwordmedia.com. For me personally, business stuff and the things that I'm thinking about growing small businesses is linkedin.com/in/Ferol. That's Ferol. I like to consolidate everything there. And those are the two places to follow me and follow the team at Written Word Media and what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ferol, for being a guest and sharing your journey with myself and the audience and those great tips about working together with your spouse. So I want to thank you again for being a guest on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me. It was great.
You're welcome. To my audience, to connect with Ferol, the links will be in the show notes down below. Please go and support him and Written Word Media. And to you guys as well, remember to always invest in yourself.